The emergency klaxon screamed through Station Gamma 9 like a wounded animal, and I knew we were about to have a very bad day. My name is Vorn. I'm a communications officer for the Galactic Council, which sounds impressive until you realize it mostly involves filing reports nobody reads and drinking terrible synthetic coffee. But that morning, every screen in my office lit up red, and my supervisor, a three-eyed Bulgarian named Grisk, burst through my door looking like he'd seen a ghost. The barrier's down, he gasped. I blinked at him. Which barrier? Sector 7. The quarantine zone. My blood went cold. Well, my circulatory fluid went cold, but you get the idea. The quarantine zone hadn't been breached in 4,000 years. We'd sealed that section of space after the Precursor Wars, locking away the most dangerous, unpredictable species the galaxy had ever encountered. Species that fought with primitive weapons and won against plasma cannons. Species that laughed at physics and made friends with black holes. Species called humans. How bad? I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. 3 of their vessels just appeared on the outer rim. They're hailing us. I laughed. Actually laughed because sometimes when you're terrified, your brain does stupid things. They're hailing us? Like politely? Get to the council chamber. Now, 20 minutes later, I stood in the observation gallery watching the council members panic in real time, which was honestly more entertaining than it should have been. High Chancellor Mrix, a dignified Vorsalian who normally moved with the grace of Glacier, was pacing so fast his robes were flapping. The military advisor, General Croft, had all 6 of his arms crossed, which in his species meant he was 2 seconds from either fighting or fleeing. On the main view screen, 3 human ships hung in space like sleeping predators. They weren't massive. They weren't covered in weapons. They looked almost friendly, with smooth hulls and lights that blinked in cheerful patterns. That terrified everyone even more. Should we fire? Someone whispered. Are you insane? Mrix snapped. Read the historical files. Every time someone fired on humans, they took it personally. A junior aide raised one tentacle nervously. What does taking it personally mean exactly? It means they showed up at your home planet with flowers and nuclear weapons and asked if you wanted to talk about your feelings. The view screen crackled. A voice came through, speaking perfect Galactic standard with an accent that somehow sounded like it was smiling. Hello, Galactic Council. This is Captain Maria Torres of the UNSS Wanderer. We noticed your quarantine barrier had a malfunction. Thought we'd check if you needed help with repairs. Also, we brought cookies. Dead silence. Grisk leaned over to me. Did she say cookies? I think so, I whispered back. Mrix cleared his throat 17 times before responding. Captain Torres, this is High Chancellor Mrix of the Galactic Council. You are aware that your species has been quarantined for 4 millennia? Oh yeah, totally aware. She sounded unbothered. Honestly, we thought you'd forgotten about us. But hey, no hard feelings. So about those repairs? Croft's mandibles clicked rapidly. This is a trick. It must be a trick. But Mrix was already sweating, which for a Vorsalian meant his skin was turning a fascinating shade of purple. What do you want? The pause lasted 3 heartbeats. 3 very long heartbeats. Want? Torres sounded genuinely confused. We don't want anything. Well, except maybe to say hi. It's been a while. For 1,000 years of being alone in that sector got pretty boring. We've been building terraformers and writing poetry and teaching dolphins to use tablets. You know, normal stuff. Dolphins? I muttered. What's a dolphin? Grisk asked. Nobody knew. Mrix made a decision, probably a terrible one. Very well. You may approach Station Gamma 9 for diplomatic discussions. But your weapons must remain powered down. Our weapons were never powered up, Chancellor. See you soon. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted into chaos. People shouted in 40 different languages. Someone fainted. General Croft started drawing up evacuation plans. And I stood there, watching those 3 human ships drift closer, wondering if we'd just invited our doom or our salvation. Probably both, knowing humans. The first vessel docked 30 minutes later with a gentle hiss that sounded almost apologetic. The airlock opened, and Captain Torres stepped through wearing a simple blue uniform and carrying an actual box of actual cookies. She smiled at the entire armed security detachment we'd assembled. "Hi there," she said brightly. "Hope you like chocolate chip." Captain Torres stood in the docking bay holding her cookie box like it was a peace offering, which I suppose it was, and our security team looked ready to bolt. Commander Galactic, head of station security and possessor of 4 very trigger-happy appendages, kept his plasma rifle aimed somewhere between her head and the ceiling, clearly unsure which option was less dangerous. "Those are explosive devices," Galactic announced with the confidence of someone who'd never actually seen a human before. Torres laughed, actually laughed, and the sound echoed through the bay like music made of chaos and sugar. "They're cookies, Commander. Here, try one." She tossed the box toward him. Every guard flinched. 2 hit the deck. 1 fired a warning shot that singed the ceiling. The box landed harmlessly at Galactic's feet. "Okay," Torres said, raising both hands. "Clearly we need to work on trust issues. How about we start with the diplomatic meeting? I promise the cookies aren't weaponized." Mostly. Mostly? I squeaked from my position behind a cargo container. "Kidding. Totally kidding. Humans have this thing called humor. You might have read about it in the old files." "Oh, we'd read about it." Human humor was classified as a psychological warfare technique in 17 different military manuals. 30 minutes later, we'd assembled in Conference Room Alpha, which suddenly felt too small even though it could seat 200 delegates. Torres sat alone on one side of the massive table. On our side sat High Chancellor Mrix, General Croft, Military Advisor Sepk, Chief Diplomat Raulna, and about 40 others who'd insisted on attending because nobody wanted to miss humanity's return to galactic politics. Or the apocalypse. Whichever came first. Torres opened the meeting by eating a cookie, just casually munching while everyone stared. "So," she said through a mouthful of chocolate chips, "let's address the elephant in the room." "There's an elephant?" "Croft's weapons systems activated." Figure of speech. "I mean, let's talk about why you quarantined us 4,000 years ago." She leaned back in her chair, completely relaxed. "According to our historical records, the Precursor Empire decided humans were too dangerous after we refused to surrender during the Outer Rim conflicts. They tried to eliminate us. We survived. They tried to contain us. We expanded anyway. So they built a massive energy barrier around our entire sector and told everyone we were a threat to galactic stability." Mrix nodded slowly. "That is accurate." "Cool. So here's the thing." Torres put her feet up on the conference table, and I heard Raulna gasp in horror. "We're not mad about it." Silence crashed through the room like a physical force. "You're not mad?" Sepk repeated, all 3 of his vocal chambers vibrating with disbelief. "Nope. Actually, the quarantine was kind of great. Gave us time to figure ourselves out. We had some problems, historically speaking. Wars, pollution, existential crises, that whole thing. But 4,000 years in timeout. We grew up, built a peaceful civilization, solved climate change, ended poverty, made friends with squids. It was productive." "Friends with squids?" I whispered to Grisk. "Stop asking about the animals," he hissed back. General Croft leaned forward, his armor plates clicking. "If you're not here for revenge, then why are you here?" Torres grinned, and that grin had enough mischief in it to power a small star. "Because the barrier failed, and we figured you might be freaking out. Also, we've been monitoring galactic communications through the quarantine wall, and wow, you folks have some problems. The Krellian sector is fighting the Voth Alliance over mining rights. The Belkarian colonies are dealing with plague outbreaks. And don't even get me started on the economic collapse happening in the core worlds." She pulled out a data tablet that looked suspiciously more advanced than ours. "We'd like to help." The room exploded. Everyone started shouting at once. Accusations flew. Conspiracy theories multiplied. Someone suggested it was a trick to infiltrate our systems. Someone else suggested immediate re-quarantine. A third delegate suggested we just shoot her now and deal with the consequences. Torres waited. Just sat there, eating another cookie while chaos raged around her. Finally, Mrix slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor hard enough to crack the tiles. Silence. Everyone shut up. The High Chancellor stared at Torres with all the weariness of someone who'd lived too long and seen too much. Why would humans help the same galactic community that imprisoned them? Torres set down her cookie. For the first time since arriving, she looked completely serious. Because we learned something during our quarantine, Chancellor. We learned that holding grudges is exhausting. We learned that cooperation beats conflict every single time. And we learned that the universe is a big, scary, beautiful place, and everyone deserves a chance to be better than they were yesterday. She stood up. The Precursor Empire made a choice 4,000 years ago based on fear. You get to make a different choice today. Mrix looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at the rest of the council. Then he did something nobody expected. He laughed. The galaxy has spent 4 millennia terrified of humans, he said, and you return offering cookies and cooperation. Either you're the greatest threat we've ever faced or the best allies we never deserved. Torres smiled. Why not both? 3 hours later, we drafted the Treaty of Gamma 9. Humans would be granted full council membership. They'd share technology, medical advances, and cultural knowledge. In exchange, they'd help stabilize the troubled sectors. As Torres prepared to leave, she stopped by my station. Hey, Vorn, right? I nodded, surprised she knew my name. Thanks for not shooting first and asking questions later. That showed real growth. She handed me the cookie box. Half empty, but still. Welcome back to the galaxy, Captain, I said. She winked. Thanks. Try to keep up. Her ship departed an hour later, leaving behind a council that didn't know whether to celebrate or prepare for the end of civilization. Probably both, knowing humans. I ate a cookie. It was delicious. Maybe the galaxy would be okay after all. So what did you think? Did this story surprise you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this sci-fi story, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing science fiction stories every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.